Live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through purpose and passion. My name is Zach Ballinger. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We do have a special guest. We are streaming via YouTube, so if you have any questions, feel free to pop those into the comment box. We'll make sure to get them to the end of the interview. Guys can always email me, zach@zachballinger.com, before the interviews to ask questions. We did have a few that came in last night, so we'll make sure to ask them of our guests at the end of the show. Without further ado, Shawn, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun, and my goal and my prayer is that this will be a transformational experience.
Awesome. I'm pumped up about it. So, my audience knows that you were in the NFL. A lot of people that are out there have dreamed. I always want to be a basketball player. People have dreamed about being in the professional sports. How did you actually get to do it? Walk me through that journey.
You know what? It was weird because, ever since the first grade, I had this crazy outlandish dream of one day playing professional football. I remember having the posters up on the wall, but it was so crazy because there was nothing around me that validated that dream. There was nothing. My skill set was just like minuscule. But despite all that, I had this crazy dream of one day playing professional football. And I think the secret sauce is in your production and your process. And so, although I couldn't see it, it was a long way away. I just kept grinding and pushing. And to be quite honest and transparent, I think the NFL chose me. Because I don't know where this dream came from. It was just something that was laying in me. And so what I'm trying to say is that everyone is here for a season and you're here for a reason. And once you can log in and tap into your real calling, your real purpose, not only will you pursue it, in a lot of instances, it will pursue you. So.
Awesome. Now, how did you know? Because, I knew at a certain age I was 6 feet and couldn't jump more than 2 inches. So obviously that wasn't my calling in life. So how did you know you were good enough? When did those evaluations start? Like, let's say somebody's in high school and they're really considering, they want to play college, they want to go to the NFL. How did you know you had that talent, that innate ability?
Well, I remember at the junior college, and it was still a far off dream, and I wrote down the letters NFL, that's where I'm going. Every single day I am going to the NFL. There's no doubt in my mind I will make it. But the transformational moment really, really, really clicked in is one day we were playing Ohio State. And I'm from Columbus, and Indiana University was playing Ohio State University, and I was going up against this guy who was like a first rounder, and he felt me. He got the smoke. I really laid into this guy. And at the end of the game, it was like something clicked. And I remember a couple of days later, I walked into the Indiana training room and I saw these scouts, these NFL scouts, and they're looking at me. And I walk up, be courteous, and I shook the guy's hand. I said, "Hi, my name is Shawn Harper." And then one guy said, "Oh, we know who you are." And I was like, oh, shucky ducky. I said, "Oh, here it comes." Yeah. So it was late for me. And that happened my junior year.
Yeah, gotcha. And what was the experience like in the NFL? Was there a lot of work behind the scenes? We see it on TV. I just watched a game last night with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think our eyes light up. But what's it like being in the day-to-day operations of the NFL? What was the experience like?
Okay, so take a high intensity 9-to-5 job. Okay, take a production like a Broadway musical. Okay, couple that together with a sport and mix it all together. That is the NFL. And what I'm trying to say is that we work very hard to bless you, to entertain you. So there's a production side, but then there's the work side, and then there's the sports side. And when it all just flows together and it is intense, and you have to be able, oh, and then outside of all that, there's a business side. And so you have to be able to wear multiple hats. You have to be able to not only understand your commitment to the team, but your commitment to the brand, the National Football League. I remember when I was playing, and this quarterback, a particular quarterback, he was the backup quarterback. And so he would sit every day with an actual director's chair. He would have everyone else had regular stools. He had a director's chair, and he would sit with his director's chair, and he would read the newspaper, and all the rookies would come to this guy for wisdom, right? They would sit there, and you couldn't say nothing until he spoke to you, right? And so you would go over there, and then you would sit next to him, and he's reading, he's sipping on his coffee. Sometimes it'd be a 30 seconds or 2 minutes, and then he would start to speak. And one of the times I went to the wise man, and I sat down, the backup quarterback who played thousands of years, right? He said, the NFL is a big team. He said, you have to make the NFL. Not only do you have to make the team, you got to make the NFL. It's a big team. And if if you understand the production side, okay, you can potentially bounce around from team after team after team after team, because it's not only a particular team, a particular position that you're playing. The NFL is a huge brand that you're a part of. And if you can understand that, you'll have longevity.
And you were a very successful offensive lineman. I actually remember watching you because my favorite team was Dallas back then. Do you remember, this is just kind of for a fun question, do you remember the best player you went up against as an offensive lineman?
Yeah. There was this big, one technique. I think we finished it with the Raiders. His name was Chester McGlockton.
I remember him. Yes, big dude.
Oh my God, he was huge. But also I was blessed because one of the most fierce one techniques that we had to deal with was actually on my team. It was a guy named Tony Siragusa.
Yep, I remember him.
It was like I had to go up against Goose in practice, and then that was yeah.
It took about 3 guys to block him. I remember that.
Goose was a beast. Yeah.
So that's awesome. So, and I think your story really resonates with a lot of people out there, because here's why. I just wrote a book, Don't Be a Zombie, How to Find a Career You Love. And I talk about, the average millennial in the United States changes jobs every 3 years. And I say, if you don't like your job, make a plan, and it's okay to change. So obviously, when you were in the NFL, you may have not realized in that moment, because, when you're young, you don't realize you have to think in terms of 3 to 5 years. What's my next game plan, my career wise? How did you transition out of the NFL? Because obviously you're not going to be 60 years old still, being on the offensive line. Sure. How did that go about?
So actually, it started while I was in the NFL, and every NFL team, and for those who don't know, every NFL team has a PR department. And during the season, and especially on the off season, they offer players to come to charity events and fundraisers, and the fee is not that extravagant. You can get 4 or 5 NFL guys to show up at your basketball game. You pay a little, fee, and, they're all there. And so I love those opportunities. And Shannon's $500 go speak to the boys club. I'm like, yes, that's me. I'm all over that. And so I would always be the first in line for those opportunities. And once I retired, however, I was thinking that, well, there's a disconnect between, you being on a team. But you know what? The opportunities to speak kept coming, and I just kept moving in that vein. And so once again, it found me, and I just kept moving in it, and I've been doing it ever since.
And now, just for those of you, the audience that don't know, you're now a motivational speaker, pretty world renowned, been booked at multiple venues. Mm-hmm. What's kind of what do you love to talk about, and what's your message?
So I talk about winning. It's that Each and every one of us, we are created to win. Period, plain and simple. And I can prove that. It's like, you're talking about football. So I'm going to assume that tee that you're wearing is for Tennessee,
It
correct?
is
Okay.
correct.
Jeez, Lord. Okay. So now, so check it out. So let's just say that Tennessee lost every single game for the next 5 years. How excited would you be to go see Tennessee play?
Wouldn't it be at all? Kind of like right now.
So let's say that Tennessee, Peyton Manning's there, and you won every single game for the next 5 years. How excited would you be to get in that stands, in that stadium to enjoy a game?
Every moment.
Okay, so now, are you still a fan? Of course, you're still wearing it. Okay, so then why is it that you're not going when they're 0 and 12, but you're excited about going when you're 12 and 0? Well, the reason is because your body, your physiological self is attracted to winning. It's like a magnet. This is why we spend billions on playing football. We spend billions on gaming. My son will play this level, this one game, and he'll play it over and over again. And when I grew up, we played video games nonstop. And as I'm talking to you, I think my niece is over there playing a video game right now. It's like because we are attracted to winning. And the fact that everyone is listening to me right now, it means that you're one of 2 or 3 million sperm cells that fertilize the egg. You won. So that's what you're attracted to. But along the way, they introduce another concept called success. Success has nothing to do, it's a part of winning, but it's not the total embodiment of winning. And so now this new concept that you got to introduce to around the 3rd or 4th grade called success, and you have to have this job to be successful and make this amount of money to be successful. That's all a man-made construct. It's not real. You were created to win. And to tap into that win is to tap into an entirely different energy source. So if life is a game, I encourage, I teach, I counsel, I coach, play the game to win.
Awesome. Such a motivational message. And, somebody may ask, what do you love about your job? What is it what's your passion?
Well, I think that we are created not only to produce, but to reproduce. It is congruent in nature that we are to reproduce. And so to be able to motivate, encourage, antagonize, and coach a person and push them to the next level, man, that is a little bit of me and that person. I love because I can see the fruit at work. And so it gives such a satisfying and gratifying experience more than just a paycheck.
You're a successful motivational speaker now. What what is an adversity that you've had to go through personally in your career? Can you think back to a time, some people know it right off their top of their head, but other people have to think about it. Can you think of a time that you've had a setback in your career?
Oh yeah. In my life, okay. Just, documented with 4 to 5 learning disabilities, kicked out of a couple schools for disciplinary issues, leave high school with a 1.62 accumulative GPA, have a deformed right foot. My foot is not, I'm so flat footed. And yeah, I went to a doctor, I think it's a podiatrist, to check my foot. And he just looked at me. He's like, "How did you play football?" Because you're not supposed to play football. And it's just, I'm glad he didn't tell me that early on, right? And it's just so many different challenges. Adversity can break you, but it also can make you a record breaker. And the only thing you have to do is keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. And then, eventually you'll get stronger and stronger and stronger. And you can push past or move through the particular challenge or adversity. And so, yeah, I had a ton. And that, honestly, that's the edited version. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And so, oftentimes, let's talk about your motivational speaking career. What's some of the things that people, because that sounds, like a great career path. What's some of the things that are difficult about it, or some of the things that people should know behind the scenes that might be challenging?
Wow. It's one of the things that can be challenging is learning how to separate your passion from the business part of speaking. And I was just having a conversation about 45 minutes ago, and I was talking to an individual, and I'm like, you know what? I would love to be able to speak in the council and to motivate people all day and every day. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who aren't able to afford my services. And so one of the challenges in that is, do I tell that person no because they can't afford it? But if I do all these free events, do I not get paid? Okay. So I said, you know what? I think I've found a solution is that I work like heck to develop cash flow in other areas, other real estate ventures and other business ventures so that I could do what I love for free if I have to. I can do what I love and not have to play the game. I could do what I love and not have to worry about them paying my check. It's really hard to motivate groups of people or tell the truth when you know that it could cost you a repeat booking because they're not going to book you again, or to know that if you say the right things, then that has a direct correlation to your income. You know what? Let's just take the income out the equation. And so that's what I'm working on now, actually. Yeah.
Gotcha. And let's fast forward or actually rewind your life. Let's take you back to when Shawn was a kid. He was growing up, maybe second, third grade. What did you dream about doing? What was your dream career?
So originally, the dream was to play professional football when I was in the first grade, as I mentioned earlier, I believe. But as the years progressed, wow, the dreams kind of died a little bit, to be honest. And, I was more in survival mode. Like, how do you dream when you're trying to survive? How do you dream when there's inconsistency in your life? How do you dream when there's so many obstacles that you have to face early on? It's really hard. And that's why, my heart goes out to, kids that are growing up and they're challenged right now, because it's like, I'm trying to dream. I'm trying to find my next meal. Like, I don't even have time for that, but in the back of my mind, it was to play football. And interesting also, there was a point in my life, don't laugh, right? But I was a very successful rapper. And I would rap. I would go to the skating rink and we would have like rap battles. Like, I would travel places just to battle on the mic. Little did I know that even that, now that I think about it, this is the first time I don't think I've ever mentioned this or drew the correlation. Wow, even in that, it was preparing me for this moment right here. Because one of the things that we had to do when we would have rap battles is that we would have to come off our head, which means that we would have seconds to create a rhyme or a rap to go against your opponent. Yeah, you have like one or two canned rhymes, but after that, you got to flow off of what they're saying to you. You got to come right back at them. And so what that allowed me to do later in life now, I never drew this correlation to just now, is that the best part of my speeches are Q&A. They would ask me the most crazy, outlandish questions and boom, got an answer just like that. And I was being trained for that. So that message is going for parents who may think that, what your kid is doing now is mundane, master the mundane. Sometimes you pursue opportunities. Sometimes you allow opportunities, that you are prepared for opportunities. There's nothing worse than to pursue something you're not ready for.
Great advice. And last question before we get to the audience questions that I wanted to ask you. When you talked about when you were in the NFL, you kind of volunteered at first with your speaking. How did you know that, that was a passion of yours? Was it through just starting to volunteer to talk to kids in the community, or was it always an innate desire when you were younger? What brought the speaking career to life?
It's just, when I'm able to speak, something clicks in me. It's kind of like it's kind of like a Labrador retriever. You have a Labrador retriever and that dog is outside. It's running. It just looks for reasons to run. Throw me the ball so I can run a half mile and catch it and bring it back, because that's what I've been created to do. So when I'm speaking, I'm in my zone. I'm in my element. This is what I've been created to do, and I can feel it in every part of me. And that's very important, young people, because oftentimes the success model will shove occupations and careers down your throat, and you're not ready for that. You're not built for that. You don't even want that. Okay. So my suggestion for you is to separate your job from your living. And this is kind of radical. This is going to ruffle a lot of feathers. I just had this conversation and I'll say it again. Find ways to earn money. Find ways to make money so you don't have to need your job. So therefore you can choose a job that you love.
Awesome. Great advice. So I did want to get to some of the questions
Sure.
that people wrote in. So the first question comes from, it looks like a college student who said that they play Division I football. They've had a devastating injury the past year and it looks like they won't be able to make it through college football. What advice would you give them? They said that the NFL was something they really worked hard towards, and it looks like this injury will keep them from playing football.
Wow. So let me just be very candid. Okay. Very few people make it to the NFL. Sometimes the dreams are for you. Sometimes the dreams are meant to pass through you, but it should never totally be all about you. The dream was allowed. That dream of playing professional football at a Division I school allowed you to get to a certain point in your life. Now, either nestled in there, there's another dream that you can pick up on and run with, or who's to say just because you can't play the game that you can't be around the game. I know plenty of guys who never made it to the pinnacle that were able to pour into other people and to carry on. Let me give you a couple examples. Look at Venus and Serena Williams. Like, wow. I mean, it's like their dad, I don't know how far he made it, but he deposited the dream into another person. Really think about what I'm saying. All these dreams that you have, sometimes they were deposited in you. So I'm the carrier of another person's dream. Yeah, like look at Clay Matthews and Bruce and their family. I mean, God, I mean, it's like generations of. Look at the Bosa family. I mean, they have outdone their father already. Look at Tiger Woods' father. How is the dream going to carry 2 or 3 generations later? There are some performers of the dream, and then there are some carriers of the dream. I mean, if God wants to bless somebody with a dream 50 years from now, somebody has to carry that dream.
Awesome. Just great advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then somebody writes in, do you have a virtual podcast or a show that you run?
It's funny. I've been actually toying with that idea of having my own podcast. And that has been, I'm really trying to count the cost. I have some assistants who are like, where's your podcast at? You should have had it like 2 or 3 years ago. I'm just trying to figure out how it all fit together. And so that's been a challenge of mine. And I don't want to say it's procrastination. I'm just counting the cost on that. Yeah, I hope my VA is not listening right now.
So for that participant, stay tuned. Shawn's working on that behind the scenes.
Probably in the next 30 days, it's going to kick off.
Gotcha. And then the next question is somebody writes in, how do they find their passion in life? How do they find their career passion?
Well, first of all, you have to declare your life. You have to declutter it, because a lot of our lives are just the conglomerate of people's expectations. This is This is this is my expectation that you do this and you do that. And he's like, you know what? Those are your expectations. Those are your mandates, but that's not my passion. And so, as I mentioned before, separate your profit from your passion. Okay. Find the ways to earn your income, make passive income, do the real estate, especially in college. Start now. Generate that 10, 15, 20K a month so you can really do what you really were created to do. Like with me, honestly, I know this is not a spiritual podcast, but mine is ministry. It's like when I have a chance to speak about God, something happens to me. It's like I'm up like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like buzzing. Okay. And so now, how do you create the emphasis? How do you create the foundation that you can go off and do what you've been called to do? Okay. And so you'll know it when you feel it and when you see it. And when you see it, don't be discouraged by the price tag. Some people were created to be missionaries, but they will never choose a missionary because they're looking at the profit margin. You know, I don't want to have to write 100 letters. You know, I don't have to raise money to write letters. Let's try something else. Well, guess what? What if you had a stream of income that brought you in $30,000, $40,000 a month? Then you can really do what you've been called to do and not worry about it. It's a guy in the Bible. His name was Paul, and Paul was, he was a tent maker. He owned, a company, and he made tents. That was his cash flow. And so then he could just do what he wanted to do. There's a lot of power in that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. This has been absolutely inspiring. And so the last question that I want to end on. So, I've got a wide array of listeners, and somebody might be interested in maybe booking you for a talk or learning more about your services. How do they go about finding you? And we'll link it in, but also I wanted to ask you that.
So you can go to, I got a gift for you. You can go to Shawn Harper Wins. ShawnHarperWins.com. I'll give you a free chapter of my book, open it up. I got this awesome course. To book me to speak, you can go to ShawnHarper.org. It has videos, updates, everything's there. But I know you guys won't do that, because you're like, Instagram, IG. So I have an Instagram account. It's Shawn Harper Speaker. Just simple Shawn Harper Speaker. Go there, please. And you know what? Selfishly speaking, okay, this is my very transparent moment right here. I'm human. Go to my Instagram account and like my page, because I don't like waking up and seeing that people have jumped off my page. I'm mad about that. I'm like, wait a second. How do I get 200,000 followers like that guy over there? That's just the competitiveness in me. So please just like my IG. Yeah.
We'll make sure to put all those links in the YouTube video, as well as we'll be broadcasting this as well on Instagram. Shawn, thank you so much for your time. We know you're very, very busy. This has been so great for my audience. We really do appreciate your time. And thank you for giving back to our community.
You know what? I love it. Thank you for the opportunity. And remember this, in life, you will get knocked down. But if you can look up, baby, you can get up, because that's what we do.
Thank you so much. You take care.